And happy Wednesday to the world. We had a little ping action going on there over on Ross's side. But it's Wednesday, and we're all in the Wednesday world. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Good for a Wednesday.
Awesome.
Yeah, we normally don't get to actually all do this in the same time zone, so it's nice to be with you guys.
Likewise.
It's awesome. It's a lot easier on me and a lot easier on you.
Yeah, which is funny because for those of you that don't know, Ross lives overseas most of the time. This is like the 5% of his year where he's not at home. But I sent the email to the team saying like, hey, here's our topics. This is the stuff we're going to talk about. And Ross is all, whoa, what's Sammy doing? It's not time. It's way too early. But
way too early, because I usually get this done on Thursday.
But the good news is we're all here. Ross made it on time. There were no surprises. There was no last minute reshuffling. So, gentlemen, I'm glad to have you.
Happy to be here.
Week.
Yeah, post bye week. I was actually telling Zeb before we started that I'm excited to actually talk about football now. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that happened in the last show, the passing of Paul Allen, the trip to London, and this feeling of resurgence that the Seahawks have. But, now we don't have to worry about a bye. It's just 10 straight weeks of football from here on out, and I'm excited for that.
I'm pretty hyped myself.
Whoa. Settle down. We got a badass here.
Chill out, fellas.
No, I don't know what it is. Like it sounds stupid, but the Rams lost plus the Raiders win, and everything else just makes everything feel so awesome right now.
I definitely understand what you're saying because it's you look at where the Seahawks are at 3-3. You look at how they started the season 0-2, and the team is almost night and day. And it's not just injuries. It's not just the team figuring it out. It's like they made like these giant changes, like almost in a flash.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't. Like, it's funny. Like, it's the devil's in the details. They say if we had lost to the Rams, but we had lost 42-7 again, and if we had beat the Raiders, but we had beat the Raiders like 24-21, I'd be feeling so different right now.
Right.
Right. And I mean, and a loss is a loss is a loss. There's supposedly no moral victories, but man, like that, it really was a moral victory versus the Rams. If we were what people said we were, we shouldn't be able to stand toe to toe with the Rams and take it to the end. And we certainly shouldn't have been able to like squash the NCAA Division I Raiders as much as we did, because it wasn't even as close as the score was it?
Nope.
No, and they kind of got they got gifted a turnover that should have gone the Seahawks' way, but obviously they let them keep the ball, and that's the only time they end up scoring.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently we broke Derek Carr, because apparently like people are saying he cried, and so you can't lead the team if you cried. But I have serious doubts that he cried, not because of his denial, just because like none of his makeup ran, and I reckon if he was really crying, like his eyeliner would have just been everywhere. With that much eyeliner, he should have been like a panda, right?
Yeah, that's very possible.
So I mean, I want a review. I mean, he did have that. I mean, his face really did look like he was melting down, didn't he? Like, it wasn't just like a normal like. People were like, "Oh, but other people have cried," but like it's like Kuechly cried because he was like, "Oh my God!" That he was like, you could see like his career was flashing before his eyes. Like could all be over. Like, can't believe this happened again. That kind of crying, right? We've seen Russell Wilson crying because he couldn't believe he made the comeback in the NFC Championship game. It wasn't that kind of crying. It was the crying like when your 5-year-old son falls down and hurts and gets an owie, and his face all scrunches up like a raisin and is crying. He was crying, except I don't think he was crying because, like I said, his makeup wasn't running.
He got crunched pretty bad, like on back-to-back plays. I mean,
he got an owie on his. He did get an owie.
Yeah. But
So
the
he's
Seahawks,
like his brother now.
The Seahawks return from their bye with heavy hearts, and obviously with Paul Allen, but with the playoff future in sight, there's many injured players that are getting closer and closer to coming back. KJ Wright, Ed Dixon. There's potentially
Dion.
opportunity for good news with Michael Kendricks, Deion Jordan. And the run game and the defense feasted on a terrible team in London. Now we've got a stretch that starts with big-time quarterbacks, regardless of what you think about them. They're highly paid quarterbacks, and this young defense is going to take them on. This is the Seahawks FanTable Podcast, brought to you by the Podcast Forum. I am Sam, they are Zeb and Ross, and gentlemen, I'm excited that we're back to football, as we talked about earlier. What did you guys do with your time off? What did you guys do with your bye week? Zeb, did you said you watched more football. Did you watch more football?
Yeah, I just watched the games that were on, and didn't have to worry about it like usual. Slept in a little bit later on Sunday and had a stress-free football Sunday.
So
that's like the big difference, isn't it? You can watch just as many hours or minutes, or whatever, of football, but like my pulse is never quickened.
And like the outcome of the first game doesn't affect how you feel going into the late game. You know what I mean? It's just, another game is on. Awesome. I wish there was games all night.
Yeah. So here's the one thing that screwed me up, because there wasn't a Seahawks game. Because there wasn't a Seahawks game, I was totally not in tune to who was playing, when people were playing, and I had Melvin Gordon in my starting lineup in 2 of my leagues. Now, unfortunately, the London game. Now, unfortunately, one of the leagues I didn't have anyone else to play because everyone was on bye, so I lost that game anyway by like 2 points. So that was pretty garbage. But that was like the one bad thing for me because of that earlier London game than the 10 o'clock game that the Seahawks and the Raiders had 2 weeks ago.
That totally happened to me. The London game, when the Seahawks played in London, they played it as the normal early time, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I wasn't thinking about it at all, and then I woke up Sunday at 8 or 8:30 or something, not like late, but the game was already going, and there was a big Melvin Gordon with an O next to his thing. I'm like, and Melvin Gordon's not out. They were like, as a precautionary measure, they'd put him on the injury list. He's not out. Oh my God, he's out. He didn't play. What? And so I got screwed. But in my case, it didn't matter either, because even though I could have substituted him out, my top 4 running backs on that fantasy football team, the top 4 were all injured. So,
nice. Well done.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well done, running
Chris
backs.
Thompson. Screw that dude. Screw Chris Thompson. He's my hero from last year. Screw that dude.
All right.
Well, hopefully you guys got a lot of rest with the bye week. I know I did. Got to load up on some family time, which is always great. I know. But my wife calls herself a football widow during the football season, so when there's opportunity, I have to pay it back, because I do.
She should be more positive and call herself a football martyr.
You know what? I think that gives her a little bit too much credit.
Versions.
But you know what? Maybe I'll ask her. I'll see what she says, and then on the next podcast or on Twitter, I'll post it up there. But let's actually talk about it. Let's jump into topic number 1. So, Ross, I'm going to hit you off with this first. So, topic number 1: which unsung player has to make the biggest impact in the remaining 10 games?
You want the truth?
I want the truth. Give it to me straight.
You want the truth?
I can't handle it, but I want it.
This is going to blow your mind, because it's so true when you hear it. It's Deion Jordan. Deion Jordan flashed all sorts of promise last year. He was going to be the ultimate reclamation project this year, overall. And then it hasn't happened so far this year. He hasn't shown what he showed last year, but he's been playing on like half a leg or whatever. But scoop is he's healthy now, and he's going to come out, and because it can't just be Frank Clark, right? It cannot just be, and it's not going to be Quentin Jefferson or Bob Smith or whoever we're pretending is our rush besides Frank Clark right now. And so we need Deion Jordan to produce some sacks, or at least draw some attention so that Frank Clark can continue to produce. And I think he's up to it. I think he's going to be awesome, because there's no way you can look that awesome and not be awesome unless your name's Brian Bosworth. Don't you think?
I don't know if Deion Jordan gets the boss haircut, I might have to rethink everything.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, then all bets are off. But like that dude, like I don't. He or Ed Dixon, I don't know who looks more like a football player. but it's one of those two.
They're in the Cam Chancellor lineup of like specimen of like.
Well, Cam Chancellor's a little bit weird. You just like he's just out of proportion. Like he just maybe like when he's standing 10 feet away, you just think maybe he's just standing 3 feet away. Maybe he's just really close, right? He's just so big. But those guys are just like it's like their proportions and everything is just perfect. I mean, I don't know, it's weird. I can't go further without people starting to question things about me. So, but those dudes are jacked, and they just look like if you were like going to draw like the ideal in the Roman and Greek sense, the ideal football player, capital F, capital P, that's who you would draw. In my opinion.
Zeb, what about you? Zeb, who is a player that you think has to really make a big impact in these remaining 10 games that's going to help the Seahawks to do well?
Well, I mean, it's got to be Bob Smith, right? No, I think it's I think there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to have to do a lot of stuff, but my guy is going to be Trey Flowers. If he can continue to play like he has been, then I think we're in great shape. He's like you mentioned earlier, a lot of well-paid quarterbacks coming up, guys that are expected to be able to throw the ball around, and if Trey's able to continue to play at the level he has been so far this year, I think that's going to help us a lot, and it's going to help those pass rushers out a lot too. So
do you think he's up to it though? So he has to, but is he up to it? If I put gun to head,
yeah, I don't see why not. I don't think it's a, who knows? But if I had to guess, sure, yeah.
Because this week that means he's going to be going up against mostly
Galladay or Golden Tate.
Mostly he's going to be going against Jones and Galladay, right?
Yeah.
Tate's going to be against Coleman. That's going to be interesting to watch, I think. But it should be Galladay and Jones versus him, and I think he's got it. We'll see.
I sure hope so.
I know he's got it against Jones because I don't think Jones has got much left, to be honest.
Huh.
But Galladay is young, dynamic. Galladay is young, dynamic. He's sort of like a poor man's version of Megatron, right?
Right. Big body, wide wingspan. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be cool. It's going to be. I figure Galladay will get some of his catches in, but in the end, if you go to that well too many times, I think Trey's going to come back to bite you.
I hope. I think I'm definitely in the same vein as you guys. Saying someone on the defensive line or saying someone in the secondary, I think those are very, very good people to select. So I'm going to kind of follow with Zeb and say my unsung hero who I think has to play well in these remaining 10 games is going to be Ross's Tedrick Thompson. This is Ross's guy.
Yeah.
I'm giving full ownership to Ross. But in the position that he's in, with Earl Thomas out because of his injury, regardless of what happened and what put him in this position now, he's the one that's really going to have to step up. Bradley McDougall is playing as one of the top safeties in the league right now. Not just one of the top safeties like in the division or on the team, like one of the top safeties playing in the league. So in order to play at that high level, Tedrick Thompson needs to be able to hold his own. Bradley McDougall cannot cover for Tedrick Thompson. He can't compensate for it. I don't think he's that great. That's like an Earl Thomas expectation. But Tedrick Thompson really needs to be able to make that position his own. I mean, living in the shadow of a Cam Chancellor and an Earl Thomas, that is a tall order. But that is what I think allows the Seahawks to do what they want to do, to play this cover 1, cover 3, where Shaq on one side and Trey Flowers on the other, and having Bradley up top, and then just putting Tedrick Thompson in a position where, like, hey, we think you're going to run, we're going to put you up to the line, we're going to put you in zone, we're going to put you on a coverage. I think that's where we're really going to see this defense grow. And, even though the Raiders are a terrible team, their quarterback's not terrible, their offensive line is terrible, but I didn't see Tedrick Thompson, I didn't think about him that entire game. And it's kind of like the offensive line. The less you see of a player, especially on the defensive side, the more positive it is because, one, they're not being attacked, they're not messing up, they're not leaving an assignment left open. But that's who I feel really needs to make a big impact, because
I think it needs. I agree with you 110%, and I think it needs to go a little bit further. It's got to go from not just like we don't notice him because he's doing his job to he's probably got. If we're gonna really make a run at a wild card, I think it's got to get to the point where we don't just not notice him. He's gonna have to probably make a couple noticeable plays.
That's an interesting point because quietly, Trey Flowers and Tetrick Thompson and Bradley McDougald, they've made like pretty great plays, and they're not like traditional like I bat a ball away or I got interceptions. Like they're causing fumbles, they're causing big hits. I mean, they blasted Cooper Kupp 3 weeks ago. They blasted Amari Cooper 2 weeks ago. They blasted Brandon Cooks. I mean, those were all legit hits. Now you can question the legality of them, but those were not like headhunting hits. I tend to think that look, they led with the shoulder and helmet was incidental. So if you're going to flag incidental, you can't stop them. But they didn't get flagged on any of those plays. Now what's interesting is Bradley McDougald in that huge hit against Amari Cooper and who knocked him out of the game. He did get flagged for that. Yet in the game previous to that, Tetrick Thompson did not get flagged for his hit against Brandon Cooks, and they were nearly identical hits.
If you're looking for consistency, you're not going to find that.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we'll never find. But that was like a big thing that was coming up, and I'm on the belief of those were legit hits because you're leading with the shoulder and helmet's incidental. Like I don't like the idea that just because you brush the helmet that's a flag automatically, which I know is not always going to happen.
Welcome to 2018.
Yeah. Quick shout out to JG from the Northwest for checking us out on the Twitch chat live. What's going on, JG? But yeah, like there's a lot of people that I feel are definitely obvious to the success of the Seahawks. But I think those three guys, Jordan, Trey Flowers, and Tetrick Thompson, it's all on the defensive side, and I think that's one of the things that has made this team as good as they have been is the defense has played surprisingly well.
Yeah, I mean, especially where people thought they were going to be. I think there was. Again, I keep going back to because I want to toot my own horn a little bit because this is probably the most successful I've ever been with making some predictions in the off season. But there were some signs. But there was definitely some like very, very huge worries. Right, you get rid of like 7 or 8 Pro Bowl type players and you replace them with people nobody's heard of, and people are freaking out. But we're legit. Like their pass defense in particular has been outstanding. So, like you said, Derek Carr. Like people are talking like the Raiders aren't any good, but Derek Carr's not a bad quarterback at all.
He just got made look terrible by that unknown defensive line outside of Frank Clark. That's really what happened.
Yeah.
JG chiming in saying, "What's up, guys? Good choice for the topic. I'd also put up a defensive guard, Barkevious Mingo. Barkevious Mingo is a huge surprise, and what I find to be more surprising is he's on the team for 2 more years, and he has been great in everything they wanted him to do this year.
He's one more sign that John Schneider and Pete Carroll have gone back a little bit to what they did more in their early years with Seattle, where like they've put him in a position to win. Right. He was drafted and was a bust because what he did in college best wasn't what he's going to do best in the NFL. He was like the big-time pass rushing kind of guy, and he's not really suited to that perhaps in the NFL. I think he can still get some sacks, but he's not going to be like that 16, 12 sack guy a year. But he can do a lot of things very well. He can cover. He can play the run. He can get some pressure in there. He can disrupt even if he doesn't get the sack. He can, he can pressure the quarterback. And the Seattle figured out whatever they did with their math, whatever they did with their homework, they figured out if we use this guy right, he's still a legitimate NFL player. And there's no doubt they're correct. I mean, he shows up every game.
No doubt. Final thoughts.
And he's got a cool name.
Yeah,
that doesn't hurt.
Sure does.
Final thoughts on the unsung player. I mean, we all went defense, so obviously we
were going to say somebody real quick on offense. Who do you want to step up then the rest of the season?
Zeb?
I don't know if I can pick a guy on offense, but
I think it's going to be David Moore. signs are there, and it's almost to the point you can't even say it anymore because he's already got the 3 touchdowns out of 10 targets. But I think like that dude's showing up all over the place and is going to continue to do so.
Totally. I think it's all about the O-line on offense. If they can stay healthy and continue to play how they are, I think that's the key on offense. Everything else should fall together.
Yeah, I have a hard time picking someone on offense, not because I think any of them are unsung. I think the only person that you could really make a case for is maybe Ed Dixon or maybe Rashad Penny. But I think David Moore would probably be the one that I would pick personally. It's kind of hard to say he's unsung when he's had 3 touchdowns on 10 catches. I mean, he's made big 10 catches.
Targets, only 7 receptions.
Yeah, I mean those are big time catches that he's making. Like, you know, none of them are gimmies. So I think it's kind of hard because we'll talk about it a little bit later in the predictions. Like, Russell Wilson is playing at such an efficient level that I don't think he's getting the credit that he should, because he's doing it in such a unsexy like way. I don't know if that's...
Well, I heard he's also kind of short.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, let's move on to topic number 2. So, Zeb, I'm going to hit you off with this one. Or, wait, who did I hit off first? Zeb?
Yeah.
All right, Zeb. So, topic number 2. At 3-3, is each game going to be treated as a quote-unquote must-win?
I mean, I think essentially you kind of have to look at it that way. Like, you know, if the playoffs started today, we're the odd man out. Like, we're kind of 7th right there. We're going to be competing against whatever other, you know, these other second place teams. And right now, you know, there's 3 other teams besides us that are 3-3 that are also out of the playoffs at this point. Everybody's going to lose some games, but I think it's definitely going to be important to win as many as we can to just keep up the pace and hopefully pull away from some of these other teams. Yeah, I mean, we could probably get into the playoffs you know, we probably could lose 2-3 more games, and that's likely what's going to happen. But I feel like we have to go into every game looking at it as a must-win at this point, and I think that doing that is going to give us our best outcome.
Ross, what about you? How would you factor that in with the record, with the way they've played, and where they need to go?
I mean, it's all defining your terms and semantics at this point. But I mean, I feel like if you try to do that for too long and keep the mentality for too long, you risk kind of wearing out on it. It's hard to keep your knife's edge for like the final 10 weeks of the season, plus still have something there for the playoffs. I think they're very, very important. We can't pretend like, oh, we're 3-3, so the season starts over because we're 500. It's not 0-0. We've wasted a lot of time. Even getting one of those wins up to this point would have made such a difference. But anyway, it's done. I don't think we're that quite there. I think we're benefiting from a weak NFC this year. It's all muddled, like you guys said. It's all muddled in the middle. So I guess I'm just taking the opposite tack. Like, everybody's going to lose, win a few more games. So I think we got a couple more losses before we're like, okay, back against the wall. And if we sprinkle in some wins before we get to those 2 losses, then I don't think we're even like really, really back against the wall, probably the way the NFC looks until December. So again, it doesn't mean like, oh, you know what, this is like an exhibition game. I don't mean that. I'm just saying, like, if I was the coach and I'm having to give my speeches, I don't really want them like on that whole, like, you know, this is a must-win situation. If there's no going back after this game, I don't want to invoke that yet, because again, I just don't think you can get the players to stay on that knife's edge for 10 more games of regular season and then still hope they have something emotionally left for the playoffs. Go out there and win. It's important. It's really, really important. And to the point that you probably have to take a few more risks that you normally would in a normal season, given your talent level. But I still don't want to use that must-win term quite yet. We'll see how it goes.
I think that's fair, because must-win is usually like dire circumstances. It's really like you win or you're out. That the mentality. And obviously, there's a lot of games that they have to play, but those 2 early season losses in games that they potentially had a chance to win, you know, really, really impacts their standing, because right now they're the second team outside of the wild card. There are a bunch of teams that have 3 wins. You know, Seattle's one of many of them. But what I think it comes down to, it's not the fact that it's a must-win. It's you almost have to be selective in which games you can afford to lose. Like 10-6, that's a really good chance of making the playoffs, and that means the Seahawks have to go 7-3 down the stretch. That's not unreasonable, but it's also maybe difficult depending on there's so many question marks or so many people that, like we said, really need to step up, because this is not a dominant team. They've played a dominant couple of games. They've really ramped up their offense and really kind of clamped down their defense in the last, 3 out of their last, 6 games. So I agree with Ross in stating that, like, you can't treat it as a must-win, but you do have to start looking and saying, like, what are the games that we have to win, because it's going to be important when it comes to seeding. Like, this game against Detroit is a really, really important game based on the fact that Detroit might be a playoff team, and if you lose the tiebreaker to them, that hurts you really bad. The games that they're playing in the upcoming week, they're going to play Green Bay, they're going to play Carolina, and they're going to play the Rams again. So that's 3 teams, and you add Detroit in there. 4 of their next 5 games are against teams that are clearly in the playoff hunt in the NFC, and this is not a strong NFC year. So, a team approach, yeah, I think Ross is 100%. So, like, from a coaching perspective, you have to train it, but from an outsider's perspective, from a fan perspective, they have to be able to figure out which of these games that we can lose. Lose the game to your Rams, sure, you're not going to win the NFC West this year. That's fine. You lose in Los Angeles, that's a game you can lose. Lose to an AFC team, that's a game you can lose because it doesn't have the same impact that an NFC conference game would. That's why I think maybe you can look at the mentality, but there's still a lot of games to be played, and it could definitely teeter one way or the other. So, as a fan, I think that this game coming up is must-win, but there are definitely games that are lined up that you have some flexibility, that you have to be able to show, like, okay, maybe we don't go, 7-3 down the stretch. Maybe we go 6-4, but maybe that's enough this year, depending on how it stacks out.
Although we're on the outside looking in currently right now, if you project stuff out according to the CBS app, after you take out the division leaders, I think we have the highest percentage of likelihood of postseason. Yep.
Yeah, we have right now we have the tiebreaker over all the other 3-3 teams.
And we have according to this, we have a 1.1% chance of winning the division outright. Woohoo!
Wow. That would be quite a fall for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, like, if Goff and Gurley get hurt, and if there's an earthquake in Los Angeles and it falls into the sea, we have that chance. And then, according to the CBS app, right now we're at 46.2% chance of making the postseason, which you can round up to 50-50. So,
yeah, I feel like if we beat the Lions, the Packers, the Panthers, and the Vikings, if we win those 4 games, then I think
Zeb's like, if we run the table.
No, the four out of the remaining however many games, 8-9 games. If we at least win those 4, I think it's very likely that we win enough of the other ones.
Right,
because you throw in 49. You throw in the Niners and the Cardinals. That's another. There's 2 other games that you could potentially win easily.
Yeah,
that
the Rams will probably lose to the Rams again, but who knows? We'll put up a good fight against them, I'm sure, and we might go our way. And then, yeah, like you said, the AFC teams, the Chargers and the Chiefs, the least important of the other teams, at least on paper. So,
I mean, like, the Cardinals at the beginning of the down as a split, and now I don't. Right?
No, not at all, because that game's in Seattle.
No, they might be the worst team in the league too. Of course, they'll play us hard because that's just how they do it. But
yeah, but you can play us hard. But when you don't, I mean, when Josh Rosen is your starter, I mean, like, how hard does it get?
Right.
I mean, they need, no matter how hard they think they are, they're still going to need some ED meds. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm not. Yeah. And like the Green Bay doesn't look right this year. They don't scare me.
Yeah, I mean, they almost lost to San Francisco.
Yeah,
I think San Francisco is also that team where they're making games out of games that we don't think they should be. So that's pretty typical.
They're making games purely out of, like, leftover college chemistry, as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
Yeah, but then you look at
That's just
them
what
play
it is,
against. Then you look at them play against the LA Rams, and they just got embarrassed. You know.
Right.
I don't understand the Bears anymore. Like we lost to the Bears, and I was frustrated. And then they looked really, really good, and I was like, wow, they're like the second best team in the league, and so I don't feel bad for that loss anymore. And now they're in fourth place in the NFC North, so whatever.
Yeah,
I don't understand the Bears this year.
It's a crazy NFC this year, and it's hard to say that there's one team that's 100% better than some others if you're not the Rams.
Yeah, it's
except for the Rams. The Rams are 100% better than everybody right now.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that you could say about the Rams, they have a 107-point differential between points scored and points given up. That's ludicrous.
Yep.
So that's the outlook. But I think like you were saying, Ross, the past two games that they played were such great showings, even though they went 1-1, that there's so much to be excited for if that's who this team is.
Yeah.
Right.
I also wonder if the Rams might be peaking too early, because I don't think you can keep up some of that performance all season long. And I also wonder, are they really a team built for the winter? Because those three wide receivers out there, you're going to throw them, I don't know, we'll see. I mean, Gurley's legit, but even his way of running, I don't know, we'll see.
I mean, the thing is, the next three games that the next four games, they play the Packers at home, they play in New Orleans, they play Seattle at home, and then they play the Chiefs. That defense might show some cracks, because if Seattle showed teams how to play the Rams, not necessarily that all of these teams have a great running game, but the Saints, Seattle, and the Chiefs, they could definitely run at them and control clock, limit their opportunities, and that potentially bodes well for them and bodes poorly for the Rams. So that's maybe the one thing that I would look for over this next 4-game stretch for the Rams, to really determine if they are going to be like a team of destiny. And I'm not really sure I believe that they are, because I don't believe in that defense yet, because I think they are definitely susceptible, and the next 3 or 4 games are definitely going to show.
That Chiefs-Rams game is going to be a good game, though.
Yeah.
I'd attend that game. I can't normally enjoy myself going to a non-Seahawks game, but I'd see that.
Number 1 and number 2 scoring offenses. Yeah, I just want to watch Patrick Mahomes and his froggy voice.
That freaked me out, man. I first heard it on the radio, and I thought it was somebody joking. They played this, he didn't even just sound weird. He was kind of talking about weird stuff, and I was like, dude, they're just making fun of the dude. That's not right. Then I was like, oh my god, that's the real interview.
Yeah, but when you have 7 straight games of 300 yards passing, people probably don't care what you sound like.
Sound however you want to sound like, yeah. Exactly.
All right, well, let's move on to topic number 3. So this is the Hawks Cast Corner. So this came from the website. So if you guys get a chance, for those of you listening, go to hawkscast.com. We've got a forum there. Love to talk to you about all kinds of stuff. So this one is in regards to the passing of Paul Allen. Jerry Jones wants Jeff Bezos to buy the Seahawks. Who is the potential owner for the Seahawks? So Ross, I know you chimed in. What's your thoughts?
I don't want Jeff Bezos. I mean, that dude's like a punchline on Silicon Valley, the comedy show. So, no. I think I talked briefly about this. And I don't think there's going to be the one owner situation anymore. I don't think the world economy supports that anymore, because apparently the Seahawks are valued at, is it $2.8 billion?
I heard 2.5 is kind of the floor, but yeah, and it's probably going to go.
It's going to go higher. I mean,
real quick, I want to read you this quote. So this came from Sports Illustrated. So Jerry Jones said, "One obvious name the league would no doubt be interested in bringing into the fold is Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos. He is the world's wealthiest person, is based in Seattle, and the NFL is already in business with him through its Thursday night streaming partnership with Amazon Prime Video. Someone like that," Jones said, of Bezos, I'd carry him piggyback to get him in the NFL. So
that's a little weird to me, because the scoop is that when Paul Allen first was becoming an owner, the other owners resisted because Paul Allen was so much richer than them. Like, isn't it like if you combine the rest of the wealth of the other 31 owners, it adds up to roughly what Paul Allen has or something? Or had?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, a lot of these owners, it's especially for the really, really old teams, like the Rooneys and the Maras, like their wealth is basically the team and nothing else.
Right. So, like, I don't understand why now they'd really embrace that, because it seems like if you get a weird owner who wants to go out of line, but is kind of like literally like overwhelming the rest as far as wealth goes, it seems like a little weird to me. And I don't know, does that dude, the way he runs Amazon makes me think he wouldn't keep. So I want somebody who would keep like what the Seahawks have going on and their mentality in their management style and the front office and things like that. And the way Amazon runs makes me think, if that's any indication, and sometimes it is, look at like how the Browns owners treats this normal trucking company. Like, trucking company. Anyway, like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want that guy. And I don't know who's out there. I just, for now, can I be really selfish? I just want Paul Allen's sister, Jody, to run it. And then she's probably relatively young. And then when she's ready to move on from this world, I probably will be too. And it's not my problem. So, like, I really don't have an answer. There's nobody I want to own the team except for maybe myself. But apparently they want more than I can afford. Except my $20 in. They were like, no, sir, you can't buy the team. I was like, can I put it on layaway? And no. So I'm out of options there. I could go in with you guys, but then we'd have like really serious voting problems. And I don't know. Like, I really don't know. A collaboration, like a team group, you put a group together. Some of those groups we're putting together for like NBA teams in Seattle. I don't know. I'm not local, so dude, I don't know. I don't have a good answer. I want it to be something that keeps Seattle special, and it's just hard to identify. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer. I'm sorry.
I don't think it's possible to have a good answer, really. I mean, we have to say Jeff Bezos, A, because he's out of Seattle, but also because he can afford it. But who else can afford it? You know what I mean?
But that's like Paul Allen is Seattle. Like today, we were talking. I was at the Boeing Flight Museum today, and I got to the second half of the museum, and there was Spirit One or the first like privately owned spaceship to go into space twice in a week. And guess who funded it? Paul Allen. And like everywhere I go in Seattle, it's just like, oh yeah, Paul Allen did for this. Oh yeah, Paul Allen did that for. Oh yeah, Paul Allen did that for the city. Like, Jeff Bezos isn't that guy. He's here. It's an accident of geography. He's not like a heart and soul Seattle dude.
Right. No, that's exactly it. Like I don't think he probably doesn't give a shit. He probably doesn't care. Yeah. I want whoever this is going to be. I want it to be somebody that cares about not only about the Seahawks but about the sport. And is going to have the best interest of the team in mind. And I think Jerry Jones just likes the idea of having somebody of Bezos's
I bet they
power in the league, having him involved. Yeah. It's just, I guess, I don't know how that all works, how that would benefit anybody else, but maybe somehow it does.
Yeah. I had one small, tiny, weird kind of like Saturday afternoon movie special of the week kind of thing. And like, I had this idea where like Bill Gates is moved by Paul Allen's death. Like they didn't get along most of their lives after they broke up over Apple, right? And they obviously see the world very, very different way. Bill Gates was like the nerd's nerd, and Paul Allen was like the jock's nerd. Like he actually like was a nerd, but could get along with like normal human being, like me. Like I'm kind of that way. I'm a nerd, but I like sports also and stuff like that. So I just feel
unicorn.
Yeah. So I kind of had this idea that what if like Paul Allen's passing kind of like sparked something just somehow in Bill Gates and made him want to go like, you know what, that was my partner and I'm going to continue his work and I'm going to become a little bit like less robotic and I don't want to be like Mark Zuckerberg's older version And so I'm going to prove I'm human by buying the Seahawks and just like trying my best to continue that philosophy in that way. Because Bill Gates he has a property. He owns a house on Lake Washington or Lake Union or one of those.
He still lives in the area.
Right. And he actually is more, he's not as involved in the community because, again, he's a robot, and it's hard for him. But he's a bit more Seattle-ish. And if he was doing it in that sense, like kind of taking up the mantle that his ex-partner had, I make it sound like a romantic partner, I realize, but that's not what I mean. Like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Or is that, I mean, like it's too out there, I guess. But it's kind of my hope, I guess. If I had to answer this and I had something to hang on to, I'd be like, this inspires Bill Gates, and Bill Gates comes in and actually does something besides like try to take over education in the country and saving everybody in Africa. Like that's his thing now.
Right.
I don't know.
Maybe Elon Musk could get interested.
Oh God.
But Elon Musk thinks like we live in a simulation, so
yeah, actually, like playing Madden.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, probably. If I think about it that way, it's like Inception now. Jesus.
So there are definitely people that are fans of the Seahawks that are not living in Seattle, so they don't see like kind of like these people like a Jeff Bezos, a Paul Allen, or Bill Gates, and like their impact on the city. So I live in the Seattle, I work in the city, and there's definitely a stark difference between the footprints that Paul Allen left, which are immeasurable, that no one will ever be able to live up to the impact he made to the city of Seattle, not just in regards to the owner of the Seahawks, but just in multiple ways. Bill Gates, he has a presence in Seattle, but he has like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but that does a lot of philanthropic work all over the country, a lot of it internationally, because their money can go a lot further than it could in the U.S. So that's like one thing. So to your point, Ross, if he wanted to invest in the city, that's something he could do, but Bill Gates is much more low-key about it. That's why he has the foundation to kind of do those things for him. Jeff Bezos really does nothing for the community other than say, I have a headquarters in Seattle, I have a lot of people, I pay them, so they pay taxes, they buy property, they do business in your city. Like, that's like kind of the extent of what he does. Like, he really doesn't do a lot of philanthropic work that people will see. He doesn't really make a big show about like trying to show that he is involved in the community other than saying like, my headquarters is in your city. And the only reason why they picked Seattle, they actually started in Bellevue on the east side. The only reason why they're in the state is because we didn't have sales tax if you did internet orders. Obviously that's changed now, but that's one of the big reasons why they went to Seattle. There was no income tax for the employees when they started hiring, and also if people ordered stuff but they didn't live in the location where there was an Amazon warehouse or Amazon office, you didn't have to pay sales tax. So that's one of the biggest reasons why they did that. Obviously, that was...
Right. Do I pay sales tax now when I'm ordering stuff from Amazon and I go?
So before, if you lived in like a different state from where a shipping warehouse was, you did not have to pay sales tax.
Right.
So if I ordered from a third-party vendor who, like, let's say they were in Montana and they shipped to me, because there was no physical location in the state of Washington, I did not have to pay sales tax, and the state of Washington lost out on revenue opportunity because it was shipped from a different state coming into the state of Washington.
You didn't really lose anything.
Though the state did. The state lost revenue. Tax
you
revenue.
don't lose revenue.
But that's what's changed now. So that's a whole different topic. If you want to talk about it more, go to the forum. Go to Hawkscast. Someone actually wrote about sales tax. There's actually a topic about it if you want to chat more about it. But Jeff Bezos is not going to buy the Seahawks. He's not invested in the city in the same way. He doesn't really have a presence. Like, you don't see his footprint anywhere other than the fact that he has all these big offices that like cause a lot of traffic, and a lot of people hate it. Like, the people that live in Seattle, they've become.
But moreover, you don't.
They've become that city, though. We've become that city where we're like, oh, I remember when we didn't have these people here, and I could actually drive, and it didn't take me an hour to get from one part of the city to the other. Like, we've become that city because so many people have come in. There's so many jobs that have been brought to the city because
there's not that many people. It's because this city doesn't. Well, this city, Seattle doesn't plan. Like, there's no plan. Like, how can you have grown that much and never said at one point we want to have an actual train system that doesn't take us 25 years to build 10 miles? Come on.
All right, you're spoiled. All right, let's be real. You're spoiled, okay? You're spoiled.
So
you live in a country that has their train system.
Who do you want to own the Seahawks?
Who do I want to own the Seahawks? If I had it my way, I would actually go with Steve Ballmer. I want Steve Ballmer, a former Microsoft CEO. He currently owns the LA Clippers. I would love for him to own the Seahawks. I think that's like my pie in the sky.
Is he local now?
He's not local. He retired, so he owns the Clippers. He has a lot of frustration as the owner of the Clippers because he doesn't get as much revenue at the Staples Center as the LA Lakers do because he's playing second fiddle to them. Probably doesn't help.
Who's the primary owner? Sorry to cut you off, but real quick. Who's the primary, majority owner of the Sounders?
It's Joe Ross, I think. He's a producer. He's like a movie producer, I want to say.
How is that guy awesome?
I mean, the Sounders are a really good franchise, but I wouldn't. Let's see.
Drew Carey.
Sorry, what?
Drew Carey's partial owner of the Sounders.
Right, Drew Carey is a minority owner. Yeah, Adrian Anauer and Joe Roth. Those are the two big guys. Joe Roth is the movie producer guy. I mean, he's a former chairman of Century Fox and Walt Disney Studios, and then Adrian Anauer.
There's no way that guy has money. There's no way he has it.
Yeah, I mean, Anauer owns a company, but his net worth is nowhere close enough to do anything on his own.
It's like maybe $1 billion, maybe a little less.
Yeah, I mean, here's the crazy thing. Paul Allen's net worth was like $170+ billion. The next closest NFL owner was $50 billion. So we're talking about someone who had, 3 times less than Paul Allen. And I think it was the Miami owner, and he bought the Miami Dolphins 5 years ago for $1.1 billion. So
is that Jacksonville? Khan?
Shad Khan is 4th behind Stan Kroenke. Stan Kroenke is the Walmart owner of the LA Rams. But I mean, they're still the three of them combined are not Bill Gates or Paul Allen.
I kind of assumed that Jody would keep it, but can she afford to keep it? Because there's going to be inheritance tax, and it's got to be probably quite hefty.
It kind of depends on how they do the ownership. The team can't be put in a trust. The NFL won't allow it, but it could be set up so that a lot of Paul Allen's inheritance is going to go somewhere, and it's probably going to go to his family and to his foundations. So I mean, there's money and things to be had so that they could sell to pay stuff off. It's not ideal, but it's definitely a possibility.
God, this is going to be a nightmare. The good news is that Seattle has built something while under Paul Allen, and that we talk about legacy loss. That will be on the football side the biggest legacy. No matter who ends up owning it, moving the team will not be an option. It just won't be. The NFL won't allow it when it's built to become like this. So that's a positive. But the thing is, you worry about are they going to have the same mentality of number one in every other aspect that there's not a salary cap on. You can have the best facilities and the best treatment and the best philosophy for the office employees and so on. So we'll see.
I think the thing is, when you look at it from a sports perspective, it's really hard for a successful team to be sold in general. And if a successful team is sold, it's hard for them to all of a sudden fall on their face, because unless that owner really meddles and really tries to put their fingerprints into the system, it's unlikely to change. Now, what often happens is it's a shitty franchise that gets bought up by a shitty owner, and it wrecks it up. The last example that I think is super relevant is the Supersonics, where they were a really good franchise, but with a kind of a bad owner previously, and then a new person came in, thought they were the bee's knees, and they continued to fuck things up, and then left in a huff, and now we don't have a team anymore. So that's the closest I can think of recently, at least of the major sports.
All right.
All right. Well, let's turn our friends upside down and let's move on to topic number 4. We're going to talk about the Detroit Lions and Matt Stafford. So Zeb, Matt Stafford is a quote-unquote prolific staffer. I'm adding the quotation marks here. Do the Seahawks have the chops to contain him?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's going to get his yards, most likely. I mean, he's a prolific passer, but he's far from a mistake-free quarterback. So if we're able to take advantage of some things here and there, we should be able to get him off his game. Like, the Lions are that team that they're going to get the yards on you. They've got pretty good playmakers at wide receiver positions. So, yeah, I expect him to be throwing a lot and probably going to get his 300 yards. But I think that if the defense continues to play how they have so far this season, they should be able to minimize the damage as much as possible. I don't. He's not gonna go all world on us and throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns or anything like that. I don't see it happening.
Ross, what about you? It kind of depends on what you think about Stafford, I suppose, because we talked about this earlier before we started the podcast. We were talking earlier before the podcast started about Matt Stafford and what was a good player comp for him. Do you think the Seahawks can contain Matt Stafford?
He's Andrew Luck without the beard, right? And I think I kind of like the matchup. They throw a lot this year. They throw more short passes than they used to, but the running backs are going to be covered by Bobby and our new safeties, and I'm comfortable with that. And they've got 3 legit receivers. One's Aiden, but they have 3 legit receivers. They got Tate, and he's their best in my opinion, even now. But he's in the slot, and we've got like a top 3 slot cornerback, maybe the best. Justin Coleman. I'm comfortable with that. We've got Griffin on one side, and that's he's getting close to shutdown territory now. And we've got Trey Flowers, who Zeb talked about earlier, on the other side. So I'm feeling pretty good. And like somebody mentioned, like Matt Stafford throws for a lot of yards, but he can also throw a lot of interceptions. So I'm kind of feeling that for this game. He hasn't seen this Seahawks defense. He hasn't seen these cornerbacks. He hasn't seen these safeties working together. So and he's not mobile. So some of our guys you can pressure but don't get the sacks because he doesn't move around like Roethlisberger either. They might actually, he's semi-mobile. I've seen him run when he has to. He doesn't like to run though, and he's not particularly fast. But I don't know. I can see us shutting him down or hurting him pretty bad this game.
So Matt Stafford has played the Seahawks 4 times in his career, 3 times in the regular season and 1 time in the playoffs. He lost to the Jim Mora-led Seahawks in 2009, 20-32. He threw 5 interceptions against the 2009 Seattle Seahawks. I don't know if anyone remembers how bad Seattle was in 2009, but I know you're young. He was only 21 at the time. It might have been his rookie year. But if you lost to that Jim Mora team, oh man, I don't know if you really can come back from that. Now he did win. He did win in 2012, so that was Russell Wilson's rookie year. But he's lost in the playoffs in 2017. That's a game that Zeb and we actually got to go to together. And he also lost in Seattle in 2015. So he doesn't have a great track record against Seattle. And, 3 of those last 4 games were against this Pete Carroll-led team. So, and if you've got a Jim Mora loss in your record, that's a pretty bad indictment against you.
God, that was such a bad year.
Now,
that's the only year I've had season tickets where I came over to watch games more out of sort of like a sense of duty than really wanting to.
That's
I came to dread it. I came to dread it. It was just like going like annoying. Like even if there were interesting losses, it would have been better. But those are the games where like at halftime we'd have like 45 yards of offense.
Oh man!
You're just like, what am I doing here?
I mean, Matt Hasselbeck had a game in that he had a game. He threw it 53 times though, but It was a game. I think with Matt Stafford though, it's the case that you always dread. You've got a quarterback that is good enough, but not necessarily great, and that's who I think the Detroit Lions have kind of like hitched their wagon to. For better or for worse, he's their quarterback that they've hitched their wagon to, and they have to hope that he's going to be good enough. And I don't think he ever will be, because he's been playing for 9 years and never won a playoff game, I don't believe. Never really had a really outstanding season that really put him above anyone else, but I don't think...
Well, dude, I mean, he averages like 4,800 yards a season. I mean, like, he doesn't have anything outstanding in the sense that, I don't know, they're all kind of outstanding, and it sort of gets boring. Yeah. He reminds me a little bit of this generation's like Dan Fouts, to be honest. Dan Fouts, like, prolific passer year after year after year for the Chargers, but the team was just always built wrong, so they could pass for as much as they wanted to, but it never really meant anything when they got to the playoffs. They weren't going to go anywhere. Never went to the Super Bowl, and Dan Fouts never sniffed a Super Bowl. But I mean,
that's actually a really good comparison. I think Dan Fouts is a perfect comparison to Matthew Stafford.
I
nailed it.
I think Phillip Rivers is the Dan Fouts. They both happen to play for the Chargers, but I think that's a pretty good comp. I mean, do you guys know how many playoffs that the Lions have been to? Just off the top of your head, I have it pulled up here. What's your guess?
Ever, or since
with Stafford?
I think 4. Are they 0-4?
Zeb, what's your guess?
I think less than 4.
They're
0-2?
They're 0-3. Yeah. So 2011, 14, and 16. I mean, it's hard for me. Obviously, as a fan, I don't have to take Stafford and the Lions seriously, but what I look at is, even beyond Stafford, the Lions have the 30th ranked rushing defense in the league. If Seattle's offensive line and their running game is as good as we've seen, that means that we're going to see a precision like Russell Wilson, who's going to probably throw it less than 20 times or around that amount of time and just pick his spots, and the running game is going to just kill them. I think the one thing that I feel like we should have talked about more, but we never got a chance to, was Seattle opened and closed the Raiders London game with 2 drives that lasted over 7 minutes each. And that's 7 minutes of game clock. They opened the first drive, ran it 10 out of 13 times, scored a touchdown. They got the ball back with 8:25 on the clock, and they ran out the clock. I can't remember the last time the Seahawks did that. I mean, I know they have, but I can't remember the last time they did it. Not with the teams that we've seen in the past couple of years. That's
like a prime of Marshawn Lynch kind of thing, isn't it?
Right. But think about that. The Seahawks basically ate an entire quarter of football from the opposing team. And that was against the 31st, 32nd ranked rushing defense. If we can do the same thing or similar to the 30th ranked rushing defense, that bodes extremely well for Seattle. Because
Sam, I hate to interrupt, but if you read Twitter, it clearly states there's no point to ever running the ball.
Oh,
Never run.
Never run.
It's worthless.
It's completely inefficient and moronic and cavemanish.
You know what? If we were playing Madden, I would be 100% in that camp. But true football shows the running game still has its place. And Seattle, Pete Carroll, Mike Solari, and to his credit, Brian Schottenheimer are doing something that we have not seen a lot of teams willing to do anymore, which is what's making them unique and what's helping them win.
Absolutely agree.
Man, did I curse out Brian Schottenheimer the first 2 weeks, though.
He deserved it. Don't feel bad. And, gentlemen, those are our topics.
Man. Sometimes you just got to be patient, right?
I think Seahawks fans had a right to be frustrated based upon the year they came off in 2017, but, these last 4 games, especially the last 2, I think you have to be extremely happy.
Not definitely. Like I said, I just felt like I should have known better a little bit myself. I should have been more patient, but I'm the dude that cuts Marlon Mack because started when he's hurt, and then all of a sudden the next 2 runs for 160 yards. So what do I know about patience? Yeah.
All right. Well,
I'm that guy.
Yeah. Well, let's take that luck and let's run into some predictions here. So, Zeb, I'm going to give you the courtesy of going first for all of our predictions today. So, the final score between the Seahawks and the Lions. What's your prediction?
Seahawks 31-17.
Nice score. Ross?
I can't say my score now because I'll sound like a Price is Writing him.
Price is right me. I don't care.
I'm going to go 34-17.
Okay.
I like that even more.
I see how it is.
I think the Seahawks are going to control the ball and they're going to run it a lot. I think they're going to be they'll be like 27-17. It's not going to be. The Lions are going to get like a garbage time touchdown.
Dude, up that score.
No, but I think 27-17 is where I see the game, or I'd like to see the game at.
So we agree that Detroit's scoring 17.
You're going to get a garbage time touchdown. That's what's going to happen. Refs are going to make it competitive and give them a couple free flags. I think that's what's going to happen.
Cool.
More importantly, who's going to get more turnovers in this game? This is kind of an obvious question. Wilson or Stafford, and what kind of turnovers are they going to be?
Stafford, two picks and a fumble.
I'm just going to go with that. Yeah.
Because it's right? Like, it's obvious that's right.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like a Frank Clark strip sack, right?
Yeah, or Rasheed Green if he plays.
Yeah, he's playing. So
I'm with you guys. Right. I think that 3 turnovers seems reasonable. But what I'm going to say, it's going to be two fumbles and 1 interception. Because
that's fair.
I think the Lions are going to play away from Seattle defenders, and they're not gonna push the throw, but I think there's gonna be one of those tip plays. That's where the interception is gonna come off of. All right, Zeb, who's gonna be our lead rusher? Carson, Davis, or Penny?
Chris Carson.
Ross?
Chris Carson. I mean, Penny's hurt.
He's been turned into, I think, questionable is the latest, but
he's got an owie on his finger.
Yeah. Lead rusher, I kind of feel like Davis has really been picking up steam, and he scored the lone rushing touchdown last week. They all had pretty even rushing yards to get up to about 150, but I think Davis, man, I mean, he's been playing real well. Carson's probably the bet, but I'm going to say Davis is going to have the game, and he's going to lead the team in rushing this week. All right, here's an interesting one. Russell Wilson breaks 225 passing yards, yes or no, Zeb?
Yes.
Ross?
No.
So, here's a stat for you. Russell Wilson has passed 225 yards 2 out of the first 6 games. He had 300 yards in the first game. He had 226 yards in the second game. 3 games under 200 yards, and then 1 game with 223 yards. So he's on a very, very low pace for yardage, which is why a lot of people are dogging him. I'm going to say that he does not break 225 because he won't need to, because the running game is just going to tear things up. He's going to just throw like 15 completions. They're all going to be off play action, and he's just going to score like 4 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns in the game. Zeb, does Doug Baldwin convert a 3rd down in this game?
Absolutely. Multiple.
Ross?
Yeah, I'll go multiple too.
I'm going to say no, because the Seahawks are just going to run it in their 3rd and short, that Doug Baldwin won't need to receive the ball and convert 3rd downs.
I like it.
Who has more receiving
I like your version of the game.
Who has more receiving yards, Golden Tate or Tyler Lockett?
Golden Tate.
I think Lockett, even though we're not going to throw a lot, I think he's going to have like another one, like a 60-yard touchdown or 40-yard touchdown plus a couple of short passes. So, and I don't think Tate's going to do more than 45 off of like 7 catches. That dude, like his yards per catch these days looks like a running back.
Yeah. For real. I'm going to say Tate's probably going to get the receiving yards because I think Seahawks aren't going to pass it a lot, as I stated. I do believe that
do you have Russell Wilson throwing more than 10 times?
He's going to throw like 20 times. Okay. He's going to complete 15. He's going to be 15 for 20.
He's Bob Greasy.
Yeah, but they're going to be like beautiful balls, and he's going to have 3 touchdowns still.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Coincidentally for our listeners, Sam has Russell Wilson on all of his fantasy games.
Not all, but many. This is a painful one because I don't know if you guys know this, but Jerome Bettis lives in Detroit. Is there going to be a Super Bowl 40 reference over under 1.5 Zeb?
I think there'll be one legit one and then one super subtle in passing that only some people will catch, but that makes it a 2. So yeah, we're going over.
Ross?
I can't really answer the question because I can't say I'm familiar with Jeremy Bethany. What? Who? Not familiar. I haven't heard the term.
Jerron Brown.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
All right, well, here's the follow-up over-under. I'm going to say it's not. I think we're far enough removed from 2005 that we're not going to see anything, hopefully, about the Super Bowl 40.
God, what if he shows up at the game?
That's prediction. The last prediction for the day. Over/under a Jerome Bettis sighting, a half. Is he gonna show up somewhere, either on CBS or on Fox or in the stadium? Yes or no?
Yep.
God, I want to say no because I feel like, oh God, he is. He's actually going to show up to the game, isn't he? Oh my God. Yeah, there'll be a sighting. He'll be at one of the boxes, and oh my God.
We're the only guy in the building with a damn terrible towel for no reason.
Hey, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Jerome Bettis is from Detroit. Did you guys hear that?
What? Motor City?
I know, right? I never heard that before. It's like,
what are the chances?
I think I'm the first person to ever realize that. I was on his Wikipedia. And it said birthplace, unknown, and then I just did a little bit more digging, and it said, oh, he's from Detroit. Let me add that to his wiki page.
There is a movie called Detroit Metal City. It's a Japanese movie, but it's also got Gene Simmons in it, playing the god of rock and roll. And if you look it up, my ex-employee, Craig, that's my shout-out, he is in that movie playing the bodyguard to the god of rock and roll. And they liked him so much they gave him a speaking role.
Nice. Well done to Ross's friend.
Not my friend, he's my ex-employee.
All right, former employee. Doesn't even get friend status. Still got the shout-out, though.
Can't be friends with my former employee. It's a Me Too generation.
Gentlemen, that is our predictions and our show for today. So, shout-outs. Zeb, any shout-outs for today?
Hell yeah, shout-out to JG from the Northwest. Thanks for tuning in, brah. Stole your shout-out, Sammy.
That's all right. You can get a double shout-out. Ross?
Shout-out to the Boeing Flight Museum because that is so well put together and entertaining. I spent 5.5 hours there today. Shout-out to the dude who cut me off, like, on the highway for no reason.
Sure.
Like, literally, like went out of his way to get in front of me so we could both be in traffic the next 45 minutes. Like,
don't you love that?
I don't understand it. Anyway, shout out to that dude. Dark blue, almost black BMW.
Oh, well, if he's driving that kind of car, not all BMW drivers are assholes, but all assholes drive BMWs, so. Shout out to JJ from the Northwest. Double shout out for him. Thank you for tuning in live. Shout out to Birdfinger. Birdfinger, you're always awesome, so thank you for checking us out. Bill A, also, shout out to you. Shout out to Tony, because Tony's also awesome. Check us out on Facebook at Seahawks FanTable. We're on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast and Seahawks Forum. I'm
canceling that Tony shout out because no suggested comments for topics this week. Come on, dude. Slacker.
It is a bye week. We got to give some reprieve to some people.
Modern NFL, they're just weeks you aren't as bruised.
Check us out on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook. Go to hawkscast.com. We got a lot of great topics. Also, double shout out again to Dubai. 2 weeks in a row. Dubai loves us for whatever reason, but shout out to them.
Did I miss a Dubai? Oh.
No, I don't know if we missed any, but I see a couple profiles that are coming up that I haven't seen before. So,
Dubai, we're big in Dubai.
Apparently, so which is great. But we are the Seahawks FanTable Podcast, and we appreciate you joining us today. I'm Sam. There's Zeb and Ross, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks, Kitty Pride, you going down.